fire. And blood. Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.
The threat of war looms.
Duty is sacrifice. It eclipses all things, even blood. All men of honour must pay its price. North owes a great duty to the Seven Kingdoms, one older than any oath. Since the days of the first men, we have stood as guardians against the cold and the dark. But my ancestor, Torrin Stark, began a tradition by making an offering at the onset of winter. 1 in 10 men from our household was to be chosen to fortify the watch. This is not a sentence, but an honour. A duty embraced by all who serve the North. Even by mine own kin. The North must stand ready. Winter is coming.
I tell a tale of a fierce war.
Like a lucky soul.
10,000 came, but we had more.
Press them to the bloody shore.
Now we can see the waters flow. Hey, hey, hey. Cause the lake's full of the bone. Hey.
And welcome all to the episode 5 live after show discussion. And here we go, folks. Episode 5 is officially in the books. We are officially in the second half of season 3. And I got to say, this was a pretty good episode. It was a pretty decent episode. There were parts of it I really liked, some parts I didn't like, but some really strong performances. I think Tom Glencarny was like just fresh off of watching the episode. The immediate standout was definitely Tom Glencarny as Aegon. He stole this episode. I felt anyway. He was so good. And not just him, but the dynamic between him and Larry's in particular. I feel like they had really good scenes, really good character development scenes in this episode, I thought, that are going to be kind of very indicative as to where Aegon kind of takes his arc. And I saw some people saying in the live chat from the watch party, Aegon redemption arc incoming, question mark. Who knows? Who knows what the show's going to do at this point? But all I can say, from a purely acting standpoint, Tom Glencarny is masterful as Aegon. He really is one of the better castings on the show. And every time he has episodes like this, these kind of emotionally charged episodes where Aegon has to kind of take like a cold, hard look at himself, he always kills these kinds of scenes. He's just really fucking good. So Aegon was a big standout in this episode for me. And yes, Thailand reunion. It's funny. We were just talking about Thailand in the pregame show, wondering what's up with Thailand. When's he going to pop back up? We haven't seen a body, so it's highly unlikely he's dead. And yes, we got our confirmation. Thailand is indeed alive. Fucking Thailand. But yeah, it looks like they're brewing something pretty interesting there with Thailand and Larry's very much not agreeing, it seems, on what to do with Aegon going forward. It seems like, for Larry's anyway, Thailand popping up is probably the worst fucking thing that could have happened for Larry's. Like this is the worst thing he could imagine. I don't know. Yeah, a feast for traitors. What is up, Skip? Good to see you, my friend. Welcome. Yeah, man, that ending scene. City Watch getting gutted like that. Sir Luther Largent already gone. Definitely a bit different. Definitely a bit different from some of the stuff we get in the book. But I don't know. I kind of like the storyline that's brewing in Flea Bottom with the City Watch, Damon, and these kind of killers that Orman's hiring. I feel like it wasn't a big reveal. I think we pretty much knew it was Orman that was doing this, but it's good we get the confirmation just to kind of not leave it ambiguous, I guess. But I don't know. I like it. I think it's an interesting little kind of hurdle that Damon's going to have to deal with. Because you got to give Damon something to do in King's Landing before he takes off and heads off into Tumbleton or wherever he's going to be heading. But I like it. I like it. I think that story arc has potential to be good. But we'll see. We shall see. But yeah, it sucks to see Sir Luther gone. I like Sir Luther. He was good. He was good. Yeah, now why'd they have to go another daddy like Sir Luther? I mean, they did Sir Luther in the City Watch dirty. They did. They did the City Watch and Sir Luther dirty in this episode. I'm mad too. It was fucked up. It was fucked up. But yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I thought this was a good episode. I mean, I don't see how this episode could be construed as filler. Personally, I mean, I know everybody has their own opinions on things, but I think we got we got really good plot progression in this episode, good character development in this episode, and the perfect setup for the Butcher's Ball in episode 6. I thought this was actually a really good and a well-paced episode. One of the better episodes, I think, so far. But we'll see. Yeah, that last scene, fire. Yeah, I would love longer episodes as well. I mean, you always want longer episodes, right? But I will say I am at least thankful that we get, an hour plus. I think tonight's episode was 67 minutes, I believe, in runtime, which is, that's a good 20 minutes longer than an episode of From. Which we just came off the heels of covering, and and anyone who was here for that, we love From. From was so fun to cover, and we're still covering From. But yeah, you look at the episode length of From, and then you look at the episode length of House of the Dragon, and it really is drastically night and day. Like when you're so used to these 45 minute long episodes that we get it From, and now all of a sudden we're getting these hour 10-minute episodes of House of the Dragon. Just in that kind of contrast, it stands out. It's like, holy shit, we're getting like 20 more minutes every single episode than we did it From. So in that perspective, I very much enjoy the episode lengths we're getting for House of the Dragon. But yeah, I mean, more is always better, right? More is always better than less. Yeah, how they take out the gold cloaks so easy. I know, and that's what I'm saying. Like this, that's why I want to see where this goes, because the gold cloak, especially Sir Luther, like we saw Sir Luther. He was a very capable individual. You could definitely tell he was not some kind of slouch. He's been on the City Watch ever since Damon was in the city 20 years ago. So like he knows his shit. Like Sir Luther isn't some slouch, and he's got a bunch of his men with him. So yeah, whatever force is doing this, they definitely need to be shown to be pretty formidable. At least they seem to be. Because man, yeah, it seemed very easy to take out the gold cloaks the way they did, especially when they were already on guard at that point. It was one thing in the beginning when we're seeing one or two of them get picked off here and there. That's very believable. But after they're already on their guard and they're starting to move in force, and then you get a scene like this, it's like, okay, whoever's doing this, there better be a fucking lot of them, or this is not going to make sense at all. But we'll see. We'll see. We shall see. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, the seasons always go by incredibly fast. That is one thing. I mean, when you're only getting 8 episodes, even From, when you're getting 10 episodes, it's still short. At least in terms of, the television that I'm used to watching, the television that I grew up on, my whole life. When you get 24 episodes of a season in a single year, every single year, it was vastly different just, 10 years ago or so, not even. But yeah, the seasons, they whip by. Definitely whip by. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, we didn't get any Caraxes, unfortunately. I mean, I always want some more Caraxes, but every once in a while, when we have an episode like this, that has, you know, a little bit more of the kind of character driven focus, I don't mind. I mean, I guess, we can't always have dragons and everything in every single episode, but yeah, I mean, I always want to see some more Caraxes too. Caraxes is my personal favorite out of all the dragons. Definitely more Caraxes is always a good thing. But yeah. But yes, but yeah, again, I think they're moving the story ahead. This is where the dance is taking us. I do think we got a pretty decent setup to the Butcher's Ball for next week. But man, you see the Cole storyline, which is starting to get really, really kind of grim, super fucking grim in this episode. And I think it's just a testament to how kind of psychologically damaged Cole is. He's just, and he kind of explains it fully in this episode. Even though he didn't really need to explain it, I feel like anyone who's been watching Cole's arc this season, this was something that was easy to see. You didn't really need to spoon feed it to us, but they did anyway. But you could clearly see this is what Cole has wanted the whole time, ever since Rook's Rest happened, ever since he was just completely broken by that battle and the devastation that these dragons can wreak on the ground. I think he realized just how insignificant he felt. And he never recovered from that. Rook's Rest broke fucking Crispin into pieces. And it just seems like he's been on a suicide mission ever since. And, we very much get that confirmation in this episode. But we did see one interesting thing. It looks like Gawain was not having it right before, as Crispin's giving this battle speech. We see Gawain fucking tuck tails and gets out of there. Which again, I don't even want to say tuck tails. It's fucking the smarter move. I mean, if I was Gawain, and that's another thing that I did that kind of stood out, I guess, in the episode. Just like in a situation like this, you would have to imagine that Cole's men would have fucking mutinied and abandoned him long ago. Like there's no way they would have stayed, this fucking long. Men are men at the end of the day. These men have families. They want to get home. They want to survive this war and get back to their lives. They're not just going to want to throw their life away for some meaningless, just absolute suicide mission. So that was one part that was kind of not too believable. I feel like his men would have abandoned him long before they even got this dire. But I don't know. At least good old Gawain had the presence of mind to piece the F out of there. Because as we see Cole giving a speech, you see Gawain just kind of duck out the back. And again, I mean, can you fucking blame him? Can you blame him? And I guess that's going to be the first question that I would love to ask you guys in the chat. If you are Gawain in this scene at the end of this episode, and you hear Crispin giving this speech, you hear what Crispin wants to do. He's full on making his intentions known. He's not hiding it. If you are Gawain in this scene, what do you do? Do you stay with Crispin and fight and probably die? Or do you take off like Gawain did? What would you guys do put in that situation? And again, under these exact same circumstances, knowing that Ormond does have a force and, you could go meet up with him, like these exact same circumstances, what would you do if you were Gawain? Would you stay with Crispin, fight and die to the last man, which is noble, which is very honorable and fucking brave as fuck? Or would you leave and think more tactically and think, I'm going to live to fight another day? What would you guys decide? What would you guys decide? I have no faith in Chris. I have zero faith in Crispy Crispin Cole. I just don't. I have zero faith in him. And I love how he calls himself the greatest warrior in the realm in this episode. And it's like, dude, even if he is, he might be. I don't know. No, I don't think he is, actually. What am I saying? Whoa, wait a minute. Fucking Cregan Stark is alive right now. What am I saying? Cregan Stark is by far the best warrior alive at this time period right now, I would say. It has to be Cregan. When we hear about Cregan's prowess with a sword later on, you hear from like Aemon the Dragon Knight when he talks about Cregan and how formidable of a fighter he was and says he's the best fighter he's ever seen. And that's Aemon the fucking Dragon Knight saying that shit. So for me, if I had to pick a best fighter, if we're going off book canon, it's Cregan fucking Stark right now. Not you, Cole. Sorry, is Cregan. But yeah, I don't know. I think I would. I don't know. It's a tough decision. Live and fight. I mean, fight and die, or live is the question. I don't know. But I think it's going to be a good battle, if nothing else. I think they're setting up a different Butcher's Ball that we're going to get. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to be very similar to how it is in the book. And again, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't read the book, and I won't. But in the book, something pretty big happens at the very beginning of the Butcher's Ball, like really before the battle even starts. Like something massive kind of happens. I don't think we're going to get that on the show. I just don't see that. I don't see that happening. Again, I think, from some of the trailers, when we've seen certain things that contradict that scene happening, I guess you could say. So I don't think we're going to get that parlay scene. Again, and anyone who's read the book, you know what I mean. The parlay scene at the beginning. I don't think we're going to get it. And again, it doesn't look like Red Rob Rivers has even been cast on the show. So yeah, no faith in Crispy, no faith in anybody on the greens, to be honest. Zero faith on anybody on the greens. Let's see what else we got. LL, so what exactly happened this episode that made the reviewers love it so much? I don't know. I thought this was a good episode. I mean, was it a great, phenomenal episode? No. I mean, it was a decent episode, and it was a decent episode with some good character development, some good scenes. And again, really good setup for the Butcher's Ball. But was it like a great episode, 10 out of 10? No, I didn't think so. But I thought it was a decent one. I did. I definitely thought it was one of the stronger episodes this season. I enjoyed this one. I found myself engaged the whole time, except with the exception of, a few of the Alicent storylines that are going on that I'm just not super invested in. But I do want to kind of see where Helena is going, though. They did make Helena pretty interesting. And we see her and kind of Alicent kind of going back and forth on the whole, drink the moon tea or not type thing. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a decent episode, pretty decent episode. I enjoyed it. I don't think it was, 10 out of 10 again, but I don't know. It seems like the reviewers were really enjoying this episode going in. There was a lot of praise for it heading into it. But yeah, that's really up to you guys, whether or not you feel it deserved that praise. I don't know. Maybe not to the level that it was getting, I don't think. Definitely not. But it was a decent episode. I thought it was a decent episode. But again, like every episode of House of the Dragon, I feel like it's always like the first 20, 30 minutes of the episode start off like really fucking good, really strong. And then from like the 30-minute mark on, that's when you start to see a little bit of a dip in some of the storytelling, some of the dialogue, some of the character choices. It's a very weird format. I feel like I've almost felt that way for almost every episode where, again, right around the first 20 or 30 minutes, like it starts off really fucking strong. And then it just starts to dip a little bit as the episode goes on, more and more and more. But that's just my experience. I know everybody has a different one. Let's see what else we got. The missus says, episode recap, too many cats, not enough dragons. We did get a lot of cats in this episode. You are absolutely right. And again, that is that kind of tie into Game of Thrones. When we see Game of Thrones, we see Arya in the beginning kind of chasing the cats around the Red Keep. And in Fire and Blood, you get an explanation as to why there are so many cats in the Red Keep to begin with. Now, they changed it a little bit on the show, but it's similar in principle in terms of replacing the rat catchers. But in the book, when Aegon kills all the rat catchers, it's actually Otto. Otto Hightower is the one who comes up with the cat idea to bring a bunch of cats into the Red Keep to replace the rat catchers. Where on the show, they switched it up a little bit. But same principle, just different ways of getting there. But yeah, a lot of cats, and that is, again, that's the tie-in to Game of Thrones as to why there are so many cats in the Red Keep. That is the origin of it, basically. The beef between Aegon and Aemon makes no sense. They don't even really have each other, but the writers try to make it seem that way. I mean, I can see it from Aegon's point of view. I mean, his brother blasted him out of the fucking sky and tried to kill him. And then straight up threatened him to stay quiet afterwards when he didn't die. So I can definitely see, the rivalry that's going on there. Yes, it's a little bit of a departure from the books in terms of like what goes on at Rook's Rest. But I don't know. I've been enjoying Aegon's arc, and maybe it's just because I really like the actor Tom Glencarny. I just feel like he's really good in this fucking role. But I don't know. I've been enjoying Aegon's arc. His has been one of the few arcs that I've actually felt has been, kind of strong. And again, maybe it's just because he's a really good actor and it's a really strong performance. But in this episode, like at the very end of the episode, when Tylan kind of discovers that Aegon and Larry's are in this camp, and then that shithead that made Aegon kind of kiss his boots in the previous episode finds Aegon's crown and kind of is like, oh, Gwaine, is it? And I love how Aegon doesn't even fucking hesitate. He just grabs the fucking dude and shanks the shit out of him. He's like, you can call me your grace. That was a good scene. I don't know. When I was watching that scene, I found myself like, okay, Aegon, okay. All right. I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad at that. I cannot be mad at that at all. I thought that was a really fucking good scene, personally. But yeah, I don't know. I just like Tom Glencarny's his performance. The guy's just he's really talented. He's a really talented actor. But speaking of, let me see if we can find that scene. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. You may call me your grace. All right, here we go.
My life at sea remains to us. No doubt be the making of the Lannisters to declare Casterly Rock the new seat of the king. Do you think even now of your own advancement?
Oh, begging your pardon, most selfless of servants. I was only risking my life at sea for our common cause. It seems I missed the salient moment when His Grace made you.
Gregor.
You can call me your grace.
You may call me your grace. I don't know. I like that scene. I thought that was a good fucking scene. I like how Aegon didn't fucking hesitate. He showed good instincts and just going right for this dude. Not only is it a move that probably brought him great joy personally, but tactically he made the right decision here, and to kind of keep his cover from getting blown. But now it's time to blow this popsicle stand. It is time to get the hell out of Rook's Rest, get out of here. I know he doesn't really want to leave. I get it. It seems like he kind of wants to stick around. I know the Sunfire thing is still probably weighing on him. But Sunfire is not dead. Sunfire is going to come back. That much I do believe. Again, who knows what the show is going to do? Maybe the dragon's really dead. You never know. But I do think Sunfire is going to return. I think Sunfire is just dormant right now. Dormant and healing. But yeah, I don't know. I was just impressed. I was impressed with Aegon's arc this episode. It was fun to kind of see him go on this journey where he starts off at the beginning kind of thinking, I feel like Aegon always kind of thinks he's one thing, and then he goes through these kind of moments where he really starts to kind of have to take a closer look at himself, and he realizes he's something that he isn't. And I think the perspective here in this episode, from Larry's perspective of who Aegon is and Aegon's perspective of who he is, I think that definitely was one of the kind of turning points for Aegon, I guess you could say, because Aegon looks at his life like he's like he hasn't had every privilege in the world afforded to him. He looks at Aemond like Aemond is has everything that he wants. Almost like the responsibility of being firstborn is something that Aegon didn't want, which it wasn't really. I mean, we kind of saw that from him as a kid. He didn't really want it. But it's very interesting to see how Aegon sees himself, how he sees himself as the misfortunate one. And then you hear Larry's kind of put things into a different perspective for him, and like be incredibly fucking blunt with him and just straight tell him the truth. And I think this is something that Aegon doesn't really hear much of. In fact, I imagine, I'm pretty sure Aegon never hears much of the just blatant fucking honest truth that Larry's kind of lays on him in this episode. And I think, for a character like Aegon, that is needed every once in a while. It's needed. He needs kind of that reality check to kind of have a different perspective and say, no, you had every opportunity. You had the opportunity to reach greatness that people only fucking dream about, and you squandered it. So I like the perspective shift here. And I think Aegon hearing that from Larry's, when I first heard Larry say that, I'm like, holy shit, part of me expected Aegon to kind of get up and go at him. But when he didn't, it kind of hit me. I'm like, okay, of course he didn't, because he's listening to Larry's in this moment. He might not want to hear this, but he needed to hear that. And I think deep down he knows what Larry's is saying is true. And I think that's the beginning of the turning point, I think, for Aegon, this scene right here, hearing that just blunt, honest truth from Larry's telling him, no, your view is completely skewed. You have no idea how fortunate you were. You have no idea the opportunities you had that you squandered. And again, it's little moments like this that I think are good character development. We need good character development in stories. It can't just be all action and all dragons. We need actual good narrative. And I think this was one of those scenes that reminded me of some of those earlier kind of good episodes of Game of Thrones that didn't really need any action at all, only relied on good characters and good dialogue and simple, good plot lines. That's really all season 1 needed of Game of Thrones. And in my opinion, I think it's the best season of the whole series. So sometimes less is more, at least for me anyway. I know everybody has their preferences. But for me, sometimes less is more when it comes to just the narrative-driven storytelling that we see in shows like this, where I don't mind. Like, it didn't really and we did get some action in the episode too as well. I mean, we see Cole kind of raiding the camp in the beginning. We see the Winter Wolves getting, sent out, which is going to be fucking awesome next week. I mean, we're going to get all the action I guess we can handle, I imagine, in the Butcher's Ball. At least I fucking hope we're gonna. But again, and I think maybe that's another part of it as well, knowing that we do have the Butcher's Ball coming in episode 6. I think I think episodes like this, I kind of enjoy, a little bit more, because I don't mind a good episode that kind of takes a step back and just focuses a little bit more on the character development and setting up something bigger that is to come in a next episode. And I think that's what this episode set out to do. And I do think it accomplished it. I think it accomplished both things. It moved the plot forward where it needed to. We got some character development for the characters that needed it, and we got the perfect setup for the Butcher's Ball. So again, I thought it was a decent episode. Definitely had some problems too, though. It was by no means perfect. There are definitely some clunky dialogue. There are some storylines that are not making a ton of sense. Again, like Crispin Cole and his men, the fact that his men have not abandoned him long ago just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Again, these are men with families that are not just going to throw their lives away needlessly. People desert all the time, especially when you have a pretty good idea that once you desert, the people that you're leaving behind are definitely going to fucking die. It's even less of a risk at that point. So Cole's men would have kind of abandoned him long ago. So that was kind of unbelievable. Seeing Tylan kind of just pop up was kind of funny. I mean, I wonder if we'll ever get more of him. I guess it'd be interesting to see where they're going to go with that. And again, I think Tylan popping up was the worst thing that Larry's could have ever had happen to him. But that's going to be fun. But again, overall, I think Aegon was good in this episode, and I think he had to hear some of this shit. Let's see.
You were not invited. All this time we've been together, from the moment you were injured, in fact, flying drunk into a battle to which you were not invited, and self-flagellate with a tenacity I find astonishing.
You've done nothing but whinge and self-flagellate to a rate that I find astonishing. And again, sometimes some of the dialogue for Larry's can be decent at times, and I think this was one of the better scenes that has been written for him. But you just see the look on Aegon's face, like no one's ever talked to him like that. Nobody, like he's never heard even sentences like this before in his fucking presence, and you can just see the shock on his face. Like the fact that I feel like it starts off for Aegon like he's shocked just at the fact that someone would even speak this way to him. And then I feel like his shock turns into kind of like a little bit more of a deeper feeling where he starts to realize, like, holy shit, he's right. Every fucking word he's saying is right here. So I think that's what we see Aegon kind of go through, that initial shock and then that realization, like, holy shit, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I have been just a fuck up this whole time. Maybe I should stop blaming everything but myself. But again, I think this is something Aegon needed to hear for his character development.
You, who had every advantage in life. You who had every chance to shine. Firstborn son, prince of the realm, the finest tutors, the finest knights, instructing you on the sword. A dragon so beautiful they named him after the sun itself.
Oof, and he's right. I've always enjoyed the character of Larry's because again, I like the actor that's playing him. But this is exactly what Aegon needed to hear. He needed to hear this kind of raw truth for the first time, and it's tough. Nobody wants to kind of take a deeper look at themselves, especially when we know deep down there's something that we should change or want to change. It's tough to kind of face that. Most people don't want to face that. But Aegon needed to hear this shit. He needed to hear the blatant kind of unfiltered, honest truth, probably for the first time in his life. And I do think this is going to be a catalyst for Aegon hopefully changing. Again, these are usually moments where we see characters evolve, but then again, that's usually depending on if the writers know how to kind of, evolve a character the right way. And we've seen that the writers for House of the Dragon don't always, they're not always the best at that. But I do think that at the very least that this is at least a good chance, a good opportunity for Aegon's character to have some real growth and real evolution from this moment on. If he can learn from this, if he can actually take what Larry said and apply it, I do think we could see, a potentially interesting arc from Aegon. But again, that depends on the writers. Depends on the writers.
You could have risen to greatness, but instead you trampled your birthright in the mud. You lazed
in the mud.
But instead you trampled your birthright in the mud.
I don't know why, but the first time I was watching the episode, the way he said in the mud, I don't know why, it fucking got me. It got me. It triggered me. I was laughing my fucking ass off. I don't know why. Am I the only one? Okay, I'm not the only one. Okay, I don't know why. Something about the way he said in the mud. Like, it was just so good the way he delivered the fucking line. It had me in fucking tears the first time I watched it. It's why I was a little bit late to the stream, because I was a little bit behind everybody in the live. I had to watch it on my own screen to catch up.
You could have risen to greatness, but instead you trampled your birthright in the mud.
In the mud. Oh man, I enjoyed this scene. I don't know why. I just really enjoyed this fucking scene. I thought it was fun. I thought it was kind of clever. I thought, and again, on a deeper level, for a character-driven purpose, this is something Aegon needed to hear. But then again, I mean, is this possible as well? Is it too late for change? As April points out, he's too far gone. The best you can hope for is escape. Lyanna is right when she says people can't change their true nature. And that's also a very real possibility as well, April. I mean, again, this is a good opportunity for Aegon to evolve and change, but that definitely does not guarantee that he will. He might not. For all we know, he could regress. He could continue to get even worse. So that's definitely a real possibility as well. Just because he has this good opportunity in front of him doesn't mean that he's going to seize it. So that is 100% a possibility, absolutely, as well, for sure. Yeah, man, their dynamic kind of reminds me of Dunk and Egg. Love it. I mean, they have an interesting dynamic. I mean, I don't know if it's like Dunk and Egg-esque, but I get what you mean. But I do like their dynamic. I think the dynamic of Larry's and Aegon has been one of the better ones, I think, this season. It's I don't know. I almost liken it closer to, Arya and the Hound, maybe. But even that, it's a lot different than that. They're kind of just their own thing. There really is no kind of duo that is like that's like kind of Aegon and Larry's. They're kind of their own thing. And I think it works. I think these two characters, they just play well off each other. And sometimes that just happens, whether it's the actors that just have good on-screen chemistry or for whatever the case may be. Sometimes characters just work really well together on screen. And I think that is something that they found here, that these two characters just work well off of each other. These two actors work well off of each other. And maybe that's something they saw, and maybe that's something they wanted to exploit. If not, they certainly should. But yeah, I like the duo. It's an interesting dynamic. Very interesting dynamic. Yeah, I never bored of scenes of those two. I don't either. When we get like Aegon and Larry scenes, those are some of the, those are among the scenes that I never get bored watching. Some scenes you do kind of like, all right, it's like, okay, let's move this along. And that's just by the very nature of this version of House of the Dragon that we're getting, given some of the changes. But yeah, when Aegon's on screen, I never have that feeling like, okay, let's move this along. I'm like, shit, no, I want some more Aegon. I really like Tom Carney in the role. I think he's good.
He lazed, reveling in mediocrity, fucking anything in sight and drinking yourself into oblivion with your sycophantic friends.
And you see the look on Aegon's face as soon as like Larry's kind of delivers that line. It's like he hates to hear it, but he knows deep down it's the fucking truth. He knows. And again, you might not want to fucking hear it, but I think he knows deep down Larry's is dropping some fucking truth bombs on Aegon's lap, and they're fucking exploding all over the fucking place. But yeah, I think this is something Aegon needed to hear. Tyrion and Varys is kind of a similar vibe. Yeah, I could see a little bit of a similar vibe. But again, they do kind of feel like their own thing. But I do see aspects of Tyrion and Varys. I see aspects of it. Yeah. I think they just work well together. Yeah. I think they just work pretty well together. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, they don't get worse. They simply become more of who they truly are. Stannis is going to really school us on that. I mean, if we ever get Winds of Winter, it may be. Because I guess that's, that's one big thing heading into Winds. Is Stannis really going to burn Shireen in the book? I don't fucking know. Like, I mean, I feel like the Stannis and Shireen relationship in the books, I feel like it's a little different than it is on the show. I feel like they're almost closer in the book. I don't know, something about book Stannis. I don't know. I don't see him burning fucking Shireen. I just don't. I don't. Something tells me that's a fucking show thing, but I could be wrong. I could very well be wrong, and we could see that happen in the book too. We very well could. But who knows? I guess we'll find out. Hopefully we'll find out. Dunk and Egg, I'm like the only fan who has always read Egg as a total psycho, and Dunk knows it. Egg, I mean, there is a part of Egg that is a little psychotic. It's not there like super obvious on the surface, but in the kind of like under layers in between the lines, at times in certain scenes, yes, it's like you can kind of see that, the Egg has like this devilish cleverness to him, almost a little too clever, for his age. And I almost wonder if that is something that George wanted to kind of have very ambiguously portrayed, like in the book version of the character, maybe kind of setting up what happens later, who Egg kind of turns into. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Egg has that kind of devilish kind of cleverness to him that sometimes is, a little too kind of much for his own good. But such a fucking fascinating character. Dunk and Egg are probably my favorite duo. Out of all the duos that we have in all the shows, all the books, I mean, something about Dunk and Egg, their relationship, their bond, how it starts, how it continues, everything they go through. I think it's just the most genuine one out of all of the pairings that we get in the show. A lot of the other pairings we get on the show tend to be pairings of circumstance. And even though Dunk and Egg start off as kind of a pairing of circumstance, kind of meeting each other in that tavern, it very much kind of, they very much kind of forge that friendship willingly and that partnership willingly going forward. Where, some of these other duos that we see on the show and the books, again, they're kind of more of just happenstance, matter of convenience, like Tyrion and Bronn and Jaime and Bronn, stuff like that. But something about Dunk and Egg, it just always has felt more natural, more of an organic kind of friendship. And maybe it's because it's kind of that idealistic kind of depiction of like what a true knight and his squire is supposed to look like. Because we have so many different versions of what a knight looks like in A Song of Ice and Fire, both show and book. But I always hold up Dunk and Egg as the kind of idealistic version of the perfect knight and his perfect squire. And I think that Egg kind of portrays, that in many ways. And I think they tackled that so good in the show, really focusing on the moment where Egg starts to realize that, he's not big. He's not big and strong like all of the other squires. He sees all these other squires for all these other knights. They're running around with, with tourney lances and, kind of, controlling big horses and shit. Like, this is stuff Egg can't do, or at least not yet. But he's, he quickly learns that, he can rely on his cleverness. It's not so much about strength, but how you can kind of serve, the knight that you're serving. And I think that's just more of an organic kind of pairing, I guess, of knight and squire that we see of Dunk and Egg compared to some of the other pairings we see in the book. But yeah, I could talk about Dunk and Egg all day. Shit, I'll go off on many tangents, but we'll keep this House of the Dragon for now. But yeah, I cannot wait for season 2. Absolutely. But yeah, let's see what else we got. But yeah, again, Aegon kind of hearing that truth here, really kind of, again, it was a shot to the heart. It was a shot to his pride, a shot to his chest, a shot to basically everything you could fucking imagine. But again, this was something that Aegon needed to hear for his character development. And again, I think it will be interesting to see where he goes from this. Just because he has an opportunity to kind of evolve from here doesn't necessarily mean he will. Maybe we'll just get the same old Aegon. Maybe he'll even regress. Or, I don't know, maybe we'll see a different Aegon going forward. But either way, I think this is an interesting pivot, an interesting kind of catalyst, an interesting kind of turning point moment for his character. It's really going to be up to him to decide where is this character going to go from here. Or the writers, I should say. But they have an opportunity here. I will say that. They at least have an opportunity here to make Aegon an even more interesting character if they kind of evolve him from here. But I don't know. We'll see. Butcher's Ball, next episode. Can't wait for that. Me too. I am very much looking forward to the Butcher's Ball. The Butcher's Ball was set up, pretty, about as well as you can set up a battle. This episode set up a battle. I guess you could say, the Butcher's Ball has been kind of looming for the last few episodes. We all knew it was coming, or at least, most of us knew it was coming. But it was always a matter of how is this going to start and what's it going to look like? Because again, I don't think we're going to get a similar start to the Butcher's Ball. on the show as we did in the book. And again, without spoiling anything, which I won't, but in the book, there's something pretty big that happens at the beginning of the Butcher's Ball, or really before the Butcher's Ball even starts, technically. And it's a major kind of turning point moment. But I don't know. I don't think we're going to get that scene in on the show. I think we're going to get a different version of the beginning of that battle. But I could be wrong. I guess we'll see. I guess we shall see. But yeah, we'll see. We shall see. I just finished the episode. It was a bit disappointing to get no battle in this episode after the trailer. I was expecting Butcher's Ball in this one. Well, I mean, I think for this one, I had a feeling that this one was going to be setting up the Butcher's Ball for 6, just because there was a lot of talk going around of Butcher's Ball happening in 6. But I enjoyed this episode. I thought this episode not only set up the Butcher's Ball brilliantly, but we got some really good character development moments in this episode. I feel like they advanced the plot where they needed to. Definitely, had some slower moments for sure. But overall, I thought this was a decent episode. Again, I think Aegon was a massive standout. Tom Glencarny was just really good in this episode. Seeing the kind of him come to this revelation, him kind of hear this kind of fucking raw truth as Larry's just lays a fucking truth bomb on him. Again, I could listen to Larry's ripping Aegon all fucking day. Like, this was such a fun scene to watch. But seeing Aegon listen to it, seeing Aegon hear these words, again, it's like he's hearing the shit for the first time in his life. And I think he's finally seeing himself from a different perspective. Aegon always saw himself as the fucking victim. I'm the one that was misfortunate, aiming this, aiming that. And it's like, bro, you need a totally different perspective shift. You need you need a dose of reality here. And Larry's gives it to him here in this fucking scene. He's like, you need to see what you really are. You've had every fucking opportunity, everything you could have imagined. You could have risen to heights greater than anyone could have ever imagined. And you didn't. You fucked it up. So I love the perspective shift that I think Aegon gets in this episode and in this scene when he's finally, I think, seeing himself how others actually see him instead of the victim that he sees himself as.
A dragon so beautiful, they named him after the firstborn son, Prince of the Realm, the finest tutors, the finest knights, instructing you on the sword. A dragon so beautiful, they named him after the sun itself.
Like, yeah, Aegon, yeah, are you realizing it now? You had every opportunity, bro. You could have been one of the greatest Targaryen kings that ever lived. You really could have been. And he could have been if he had gone down a different path, if he maybe had listened to different counsel. But then again, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Sorry, Aegon. Now you're here with half a burnt face and a dragon that's pretty much dead. Probably going to come back, but still pretty much dead up until it does come back. And you're hunting your brother with no hopes of defeating him when you do find him. But I don't know. I think I've been enjoying Aegon's arc so far this season because at this point in the book, Aegon kind of just disappears and then kind of just pops back up later. But I think, you can't just do that on a show. You can't just have the character just disappear and then just pop back up in this big, spectacular fucking fashion. It just doesn't quite work, as well on a show as it does on paper. So they needed to kind of fill this time. They needed to give Aegon some kind of storyline, some kind of story arc to fill the time between the time he disappears from King's Landing and what happens later. And so far, I feel like they've done a decent job. Not a great job, but not a horrible job at kind of crafting somewhat of a storyline for Aegon in this kind of in-between kind of blank slate, open kind of canvas moment for him. But again, I think a lot of that is due to Tom Glencarny. I just think he's a really good actor. I mean, maybe if a different actor was playing Aegon, this character would look, way shittier. Maybe. But maybe he does to some people. Again, that's really just a matter of preference. I'm sure there's probably plenty of people that hate Aegon and don't like the character at all. And that's totally cool. But just for me, just for some of the things that I look for in what I like in good acting, Tom Glencarny, I think, has portrayed this role really, really well. And I think he's a big reason as to why I think Aegon's storyline has been one of the stronger ones, even when it does kind of go off book a little bit. But I think he's good. I think he's good. He's pretty talented. Pretty talented. Someone is truly sociopathic, the best they can do is mimic those with good natures. And that's the thing. What is going to be going on with Aegon? What is Aegon's true nature? Is he really just this sociopathic kind of villain? Or is there something else inside Aegon? I guess that's the question. I guess, it's really up to the writers to decide what they do. But I don't know. Again, I think his character is at a crossroads here that could go either way. Go left or right, and I wouldn't be surprised either way. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I loved the Narnia nod, the always summer comment being a flip of always winter, never Christmas line. Yeah, a little bit of a Narnia nod, probably. I'm not super familiar with Narnia myself. I know, to my shame, I must admit, I've not read Narnia. But yeah. If you guys are noticing some nods to it, that's awesome. That is awesome. I enjoyed this episode. What did you think of Ormond Hightower's plan with the City Watch? Again, I thought it's a decent storyline. Again, seeing Sir Luther and a bunch of his men get killed that easily, that's kind of hard to believe. Again, this force that is doing this, it better be very impressive and very formidable. Like, these better be some of the highest paid and most skilled mercenaries in all of the Seven Kingdoms to be able to pull something of this magnitude off. Because it's one thing to just pick off one or two of the City Watch. At the beginning of the episode, that's kind of how it started. We see, 2 City Watchmen getting picked off with their throats cut and their bowels opened. And then we see it happen again, but it's only happening in pairs of 2. And then we see the City Watch is very much on guard. Daemon and Luther bring them all together. We see that, that big rousing rogue prince speech that we used to get in season 1. And we see that the City Watch now is very much on high alert, and they're not traveling in low numbers anymore. So for an attack to happen after that, after they've already been put on high alert, it better be some incredibly impressive mercenaries that were able to pull off something like that. Otherwise, it's just not believable. But we'll see. Maybe Ormond hired, some skilled faceless men or something. I doubt it, but hopefully some skilled assassins. At least it would be a little believable then, to be able to kill, Luther and so many of his men in one fell swoop like that. Especially now that they are kind of moving in force. But yeah, decent episode. Thought it was a decent episode. And yeah, R.I.P. to Sir Luther. We will miss Sir Luther Largent, the ever faithful commander of the City Watch. Gone before his time, and in the most gruesome of heinous fashions. Where is he? Where is our pal? A feast of traitors. There's our boys. There's our boys, chat. The men, the brave men of the City Watch. Brave men of the City Watch. So I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens from here. What is Daemon going to do next? What is going to be his next move? How is he going to fight back against this? How is he going to find out who is doing this? I have to imagine, if I'm Daemon and Rhaenyra, Ormond is prime suspect number fucking 1. It's really just a matter of how he's doing this, who he's hiring in the city to do it, how are they pulling it off, etc. That's really the only thing I would be focused on. I would definitely be assuming this is Ormond. Who else would even want to do something like this? But yeah, I guess we'll see. How is Daemon going to respond? He has to respond. Daemon's got to kind of find some way to root these people out. And now it's going to be even harder with the commander of the City Watch and quite a few of his men getting slaughtered like this. So yeah, Daemon's going to have to respond. He's going to have to figure out who these people are, and fast. And hopefully find some kind of way to tie them back to Ormond, which probably won't be too hard. I like the implication that Daron has been letting Ormond win. Yes, out of fear. Right. That was another good scene that I feel also kind of showed, just who Ormond really is and just how competitive he really is and how much he hates to fucking lose at anything in the fucking world. And yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think Daron has probably been letting Ormond win those matches for as long as he could possibly remember. Because again, Daron's no slouch. I think Daron's an interesting character in the book. Again, I wish we could have gotten his true kind of coming out party with the Battle of the Honeymine. But Daron is a clever kid. He's clever for his age. He's brave for his age. So I think it's highly believable that we can see that even now, Daron is able to see the kind of person that Ormond really is deep down. Just how competitive he is, how dangerous he is. So even at a very young age, Daron is already learning how to, not manipulate people, but to cater to people in order, or to placate people, I guess is a better word. Daron is already finding out ways to placate Ormond, even if it is letting him win in games that they play one-on-one. But yeah, I agree with you, Theory Minds. Definitely agree. But yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see where is this Ormond storyline going to go. How much damage is he going to do to Rhaenyra inside King's Landing? What is next? Is the plan going to be to just continue to pick off the gold cloaks one by one until Rhaenyra has no fighting force? Or could we even come to find that maybe Ormond might be the cause or partially responsible for starting to stir, enough unrest in the city that it could end up leading to some of the bigger kind of revolt moments we get, later on. Like, things start to get really hectic in King's Landing from here on out. It gets crazy without saying anything specific. So yeah, I don't know. It definitely, it feels like they're trying to make Ormond a much bigger villain than he really is, at least in the book anyway. Like, Ormond is nowhere near this much of a, big imposing figure. Like, he's not a main villain in the book by any fucking means. But on the show, and I think that is largely in part to them getting, a really good actor to play Ormond and James Norton, and which he is. James Norton's a great actor. But yeah, they're definitely kind of turning him into, they've upgraded him into main villain status on the show, I guess you could say, compared to in the book where his role is a little more minor. But yeah, again, when you have good actors like this, you use them. Maybe the plan was always to kind of give Ormond a little bit of a bigger role at this point. But Aemon is the true threat. Aemon is the true kind of villain. Aemon and Aegon, that's where the real fight is. Aemon, Aegon, Daemon, and Rhaenyra. That's the heart of it, really. But they are making Ormond out to be a pretty big villain on the show. So I guess we'll see where that goes. How far are they going to take Ormond? How much damage are they going to have Ormond inflict on Rhaenyra? Again, we're already getting some pretty big departures from the book compared to the show. And again, I'll only ever discuss things from the book if they've already happened on the show. I won't discuss anything that's coming in the book. But on the book, in the book up until this point, when Rhaenyra sends the dragon seeds to Tumbleton, she sends them there when Tumbleton is empty. Like, Ormond doesn't take the town of Tumbleton in the book. Not right away, not anyway. Rhaenyra sends her dragon seeds there to kind of cut off Ormond's army that is marching north. But in the show, they switched it up a little bit where they have Ormond's forces get to Tumbleton first and take the city before the dragon seeds get there. So I wonder how that's going to play into the beginning of, the first and even the second Battle of Tumbleton, because we don't have just one. There's actually two pretty massive battles that take place in the town of Tumbleton. And they're pretty devastating. I'll just say that. But I am looking forward to seeing how they're going to start. Again, they are definitely, villain maxing good old Ormond Hightower. They're turning him to, from secondary villain into main villain status. Again, I don't mind. I feel like it's been a pretty decent performance from James Norton at times. But then at times we see here where, I feel like they try to kind of portray him as like super calm and composed and very tactical, very cerebral, this very scholarly individual. They try to portray him that way, and he tries to portray himself that way on the surface. But here we get a closer look at the real Ormond, what the kind of person that he really is when he doesn't have that fake mask on. And that is a person that is envious, that is jealous, that is overly competitive, that is quick to anger. And that's the true Ormond. And I think that's an interesting duality that we're seeing them give the character. One thing I will say, the show is definitely fleshing the character of Ormond out on the show a lot more in the book. Again, in the book, he's much more of a minor kind of villain. On the show, they're giving him a proper backstory. They're giving him proper layers. And again, so far it's worked. Again, it's like he's trying to portray himself as this cool, calm individual, but deep down, he's very quick to fucking lose it the second things don't go his way. And this isn't the first time we saw that. We saw this in an earlier episode as well. When he first finds out that Aemond wasn't coming to meet up with him, he takes out his Valyrian steel sword Vigilance and goes ham on the freaking table in front of him, just flipping out like a toddler. So we're seeing the cracks in the armor that is Ormond as a character. He might want to portray himself as a very sophisticated, tactical, cerebral kind of battle commander, philosopher even. But deep down, he is more of an, immature, petulant child that will flip out the second things don't go his way. So again, interesting kind of duality that they're playing with Ormond, this Jekyll and Hyde kind of versions of him. Can't believe I missed the watch party. Sorry, that's too bad. I mean, we do them every week, so we will definitely be doing one for the final 3 episodes every single Sunday right here on the channel. We do a live pregame show. And during that live pregame show, I throw the link to the watch party in the chat. All you guys got to do is click that link. It'll take you right to the watch party, and we all watch it together. But yeah, I'm sorry that you couldn't make it, but I'm glad you are at least here for the discussion. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You think it's the religious group killing them? I wouldn't be surprised. They are setting, one thing they are very much clearly setting up on the show is that very close relationship between the faith and the Hightowers, which is very accurate to the book as well. Again, the Hightowers in Old Town and the faith are, they've been 2 pillars, for a very long time. So the Hightowers are a very long-standing relationship with the faith. So if there were any kind of faith militant-esque kind of characters in the city, that they would be very easy to turn against Rhaenyra. And I think it is probably going to be that way. We get that one, there's one little piece of dialogue that we get in one of the trailers. The trailer that just came out for the midway point of the season, the In the Weeks to Come trailer. There's one line where we hear a character saying, "You can burn us, you can break us, but you'll never make us embrace her." And I do get the feeling that that is most likely probably one of the people that Daemon is probably going to uncover that is doing this inside the city. And yes, I won't be surprised if they are tied to the faith in some way. Absolutely not. Again, the show is very much making it clear to the audience that the faith and the Hightower have a long-standing relationship. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Not at all. Not at all. And yes, the religious group does technically still recognize Aegon as king. And that's because Aegon is more on the Hightower side than he is on the Targaryen side. So obviously the faith was always going to favor Otto Hightower in his choice over Rhaenyra. Always. Because again, they have that long-standing relationship. What do you think of Mysaria's perspective on Rhaenyra after her convo with Alicent? I mean, the Mysaria character, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Alicent brought up a decent point, if nothing else, because Mysaria has always been one of those characters that does just completely play both sides. Make sure that she hedges her bets just in case. But now all of a sudden we are seeing a totally different Mysaria that is just completely just devoted to Rhaenyra. So yeah, I mean, does Mysaria take a closer look at herself after having that conversation with Alicent in this episode and realize maybe there's a little bit of truth to what Alicent said? Maybe the best way to survive is to be a little bit more adaptable, not have all my eggs in one basket. That is always how Mysaria did operate. So I don't know. I think it could very well give her a different perspective on, where she goes, on how she sees her service to Rhaenyra. Maybe. I could definitely see that. See what else we got. I'm late, but I'm already sick of Team Green winning like this. Again, I think when it comes to winners or losers on the Dance of the Dragons, there's not many winners. There are not many winners. A lot of losers. Many, many, many losers. Not many winners. No, at least not when all is said and done. So take heart, my friend. Take heart. Ormond flipping out like Theon does when Tywin wins. Yeah, when Tyrion wins. Yeah, Tyrion not being a mentor. Very true. Yeah, he flips out in the exact same little Targaryen pissy fashion in the book when Tyrion beats him. Yep, absolutely. Very similar. Again, Ormond has that in him. That kind of that air of that kind of privilege, I guess you could say. How dare you beat me in a game? And again, whoever said it in the chat earlier, I do 100% agree. I definitely think Daeron has been probably losing a lot of these games on purpose just to avoid Ormond's freaking crash outs. He crashed out fucking hard. Not once, but twice. Twice now he's crashed out. Crazy. Ormond is just using Daeron like a piece on the board, even going so far as the gold coins. 100%. I feel like the gold coins were super indicative of that. And I think it was, very clear that this was not Ormond's plan from the very beginning. At the beginning, Ormond was planning on Aemond meeting up with him. He was planning on getting Aemond back on the throne. And then when Aemond decided not to come meet up with Ormond, that's when we see Ormond flip out for the first time. And then he looks right over to his captain of his guard and he says, we need to alter our scheme. And that's when he comes up with the Daeron thing, most likely. Maybe it was a contingency plan that he maybe always had in the back of his head, a possibility if something happens to Aegon and Aemond, we can always fall back on Daeron as the third option. But yeah, it definitely seems like this was an audible that he had to call due to the circumstances of Aegon or of Aemon not falling into line with Ormond's plan. And yeah, he flipped out over it. But yeah, now it seems like he is fully devoted to try and put Daeron on the throne, which again, I mean, we'll see how this goes. This is definitely a departure from the book. We do not see Ormond attempt to put Daeron on the throne in the book, and he damn sure doesn't make any custom freaking King Daeron coins. That's for sure. So yeah, this is something new. This is something off script that we'll see where it goes. We shall see. We shall see. I bet Daemon is really going to regret letting Ormond go now. That was a huge mistake. Oh, he does. And he, he pretty much says that in the episode as well to Rhaenyra towards the beginning, like right when he first finds out about, what they've done. He's instantly like, man, we should have burned them when we had the fucking chance. And he's right. I get why he didn't, but at the time he had Caraxes, Vermithor, and Silverwing with him. He could have dusted Ormond and his entire army with very little resistance. But he didn't. I mean, Tessarion was there, but Tessarion wouldn't have been able to do anything against Caraxes, Vermithor, and Silverwing. Would have gotten ripped to shreds. But yeah, I don't know. When is the next live for episode 6 trailer? After this live ends, I will probably start breaking down, doing my regular video I'll probably have that up on the channel tomorrow, and then we will probably do an episode 6 trailer like breakdown live stream where we dive deep into the episode 6 trailer. We'll probably do that, I don't know, probably Monday night or Tuesday night, either tomorrow or Tuesday. Definitely. Definitely. I always like to dive into the trailers too. Absolutely. Oops, there we go. But I haven't even seen it, actually. Now I come to think of it, I have not seen the episode 6 trailer yet. But yeah, we will definitely do a nice live stream diving into the whole episode 6 trailer for sure. Ormond is a villain, but he's still better than the Targaryens. I mean, the Targaryens have done some crazy shit. Some crazy shit. And that's the thing, the old saying of the Targaryens. Every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin, and the rest of the world holds their breath. And that's kind of how it's been. We see these Targaryens go in one direction or the other, usually to both very, very much extremes. And yeah, there's been a lot of Targaryens that have done a lot worse stuff than what Ormond is doing. Absolutely. Again, Ormond isn't like a massive villain. In the book, he's not really a big villain at all. On the show, they're making him a little bit of a bigger villain on the show. But even still, compared to some of the Targs, yeah, he's a pup. He's a little pup from Old Town. The person I watched with said Daeron should should feed Ormond to his dragon. I'm like, he's not like this in the books. They made him a psychopath in the show. They did, yeah. Again, they're definitely giving him a bit of a different backstory, a little bit of a different motivation, different objective. This is a totally different Ormond on the show than what we got in the book. But again, I think. I don't mind the duality of the kind of personality of Ormond that we're seeing being brought to the surface, of him trying to portray himself as this one thing, but really being something else. And that's kind of a theme of the whole episode, because it's not just Ormond. Again, like we were just talking about earlier, Aegon kind of goes through that same thing where Aegon always sees himself as one thing. And in this episode, he finds out that maybe he was wrong. Maybe the way he sees himself isn't how the rest of the world sees him and isn't how it really is. Maybe he's not this victim that he sees himself as. So I think that was a theme of the episode entirely. Characters finding out who they really are, that maybe they're and finding out that who they really are is different than what they thought they were. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Again, I enjoyed some of the character development moments in the episode. I thought they were pretty good at times. But overall, definitely, a setup episode, a setup for the Butcher's Ball to happen in episode 6, which I certainly hope is going to be good. I have to imagine it's going to be a little bit different than it was in the book, but I am still looking forward to it. And speaking of performances, just pure performances that I have enjoyed on the show as well. I've actually really enjoyed Freddie Fox as Gwaine Hightower. I think he's been one of the better characters that's been given a little bit more to do on the show than his book counterpart had. It's just being fleshed out a little bit more. And maybe it's just a performance, but I've started to grow a little bit of a liking to Freddie Fox as Gwaine. I feel like he's a fun character now, and I'm kind of glad he didn't just stay around to get his head caved in at the Butcher's Ball. But yeah, I've been enjoying his performance. Very much been enjoying his performance. But again, we see Cole kind of going through the ringer in this episode where he, they start off pretty good. I will say that. Cole and his men, they start off pretty decently where they're actually pretty effective. They're holding off the Rivermen. They're holding off the Winter Wolves. They're not able to cross, very easily because they're burning all of the bridges, well ahead of them. So at the beginning, these kind of scorched earth tactics that Cole was implementing, they were working. He was actually becoming a little bit effective there. But eventually, it was only a matter of time, and I believe, they knew that. They were only going to be able to delay them for so long. And that's what happens. We see that the Northmen and the Rivermen successfully cross the Trident, and they are now one step closer to the Butcher's Ball. But I'll give Cole and his men an A for effort, for at least trying. We got some good Alice Rivers and Aemond scenes, and we were talking a little bit about this in the pregame show, in terms of, how was Harrenhal going to affect Aemond? We saw how Harrenhal affected Daemon. It had a hugely kind of psychological and even magical effect on him, you could say. And I have to imagine if that was going to happen to Daemon, probably something even worse was going to happen to Aemond. And we're seeing that very much was the case. Aemond is going through, or at least was going through, fucking absolute hell at Harrenhal when he first arrived. Seeing Aegon in his dreams all the time with a burning face reaching out to him. Seeing Vhagar, Vhagar's gone. I think that's a very interesting thing. Where did Vhagar go? How come Vhagar took off on Aemond? What is the reasoning behind that? That's another departure from the book. There's never a point where Vhagar just takes off from Aemond in the book. So that's an interesting question. Where is Vhagar? What is she doing? Why did she leave Aemond? What's going on there? But yeah, and of course, we got some good Alice River scenes, I think. Some pretty good Alice River scenes. And in this episode, like they really kind of, in season 2, they make Alice Rivers, her magic, her abilities, her influence, whatever you want to call it, they make it rather ambiguous in terms of, like, is it really something that's coming from her that's affecting Daemon, or is this just Harrenhal in general? Is this just this place that is affecting Daemon? But in this season and in this episode, they really kind of amped up the whole, Witch Queen of Harrenhal kind of title that Alice Rivers is known for in the book, where they full on make her kind of like full on witch in this fucking scene. Or at least it appears that way. Again, there's always a degree of ambiguity, when it comes to George R. R. Martin's magic in A Song of Ice and Fire, or just Westeros in general. But they definitely made Alice Rivers seem, kind of OP here, at least in the beginning. We get that scene later on where she was just completely ineffective. And that's where the inconsistencies kind of come in for me every once in a while, where, again, the episodes will start off really, really, really good, really strong for like the first 20, 30 minutes. And then from like the midway point on, you start to notice a little bit of a dip in some of the consistencies with, canon and character motivations and stuff like that. And I thought Alice Rivers' arc in this episode was a pretty decent example of that, where we see her like super OP here in the beginning, where she's just disappearing like the wind. But then later on, we see her in literally the exact same situation, and she's completely ineffective. Aemon has to come and save her. So again, there's some inconsistencies sometimes in the writing. But this was a good scene. This was a good scene. Yeah, Alice, sending the bats, sending the wind, just disappearing like that. They definitely leaned heavily into, the Witch Queen of Harrenhal side of Alice, which I'm all for. I don't mind that at all. Anytime you can lean a little bit more into the magic of A Song of Ice and Fire, that's never a bad thing, at least as long as you're portraying it accurately as it is in the book. Where, there isn't like super crazy OP magic, but there are some feats that are very impressive that can, certain individuals can do. And Alice Rivers is known to be, a woods witch in the book as well. But yeah, this was fun. This was kind of a fun scene to see her kind of send the bat. It was like, it was a very Batman-esque, I guess you could say. So maybe it's a little on the nose with the bats. Like she's like full on disappearing like fucking Batman, summoning bats and just poof, gone in a puff of smoke. It also reminded me of that, in season 1 or season 2, I forget, when Tyrion is talking to Cersei. And she, season 2, when Tyrion first returns to King's Landing, he's talking to Cersei about where Arya disappeared to. And he's like, disappeared? Where? In a pot of smoke. I don't know why that line just popped into my fucking head when I saw this fucking scene, and I just see her disappear. It's like, holy shit, she disappeared like a pot of smoke. Fucking Tyrion. I miss Tyrion's ass. He was fucking great. But no, this was a fun scene. This was a fun scene. Again, even if the consistency wasn't held up at the end of the episode when she was in this exact same situation again, in isolation, this scene by itself was pretty fun.
And she's always thirsty. Her founding stones were watered with the blood of men. And she's always thirsty.
And yes, Aemon does return the favor a little bit later on. Again, she looks a little OP here, and again, it's, I don't want to harp on the inconsistencies, but yeah, when you see her later on in the episode, she's just completely powerless all of a sudden, where here she's like super OP. So again, I just, inconsistencies in narratives, it's a nitpick of mine, maybe, I don't know. But yes, Aemon does return the favor later on. You're very, very much correct. We see that kind of relationship come full circle. Absolutely. Where starts off with Aemon is incredibly vulnerable, about to die, completely at the mercy of Alice Rivers. And now here we are a few episodes later. Those tables have literally completely turned, where Aemon has to come out and save Alice. And even Alice notices right away, like, okay, you're doing a lot better all of a sudden. But yeah, again, this was a fun scene, and in isolation, this was a really fun scene. But the inconsistencies with her not being able to do it later on in that same situation doesn't make much sense to me. But again, they wanted to have this moment. They, whether or not it was in continuity, they wanted to have this kind of cool moment, I guess. And I get it. You want to have some interesting scenes, but you also want the scenes to feel a little more earned, I guess. But it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny to see her use these bats and then just diss a fucking beer.
And follows the greedy, the heedless. Her founding stones were watered with the blood of men. And she's always thirsty.
It's so Batman coded. God, it's just so fucking Batman. Oh man, kind of funny. But then again, we see Aemond not long after, and he is just being tormented. Apparently, he is seeing visions, dreams, the whole 9 yards, just like what was happening to Daemon when Daemon was here. But the difference is, when Daemon was here, he was seeing visions of, Rhaenyra, young Rhaenyra, and stuff like that. Whereas here, Aemon is being plagued by what he probably believes deep down is the person that he's wronged the most, and that's Aegon. And you can understand why Aegon would be the person haunting Aemon's dreams, considering the history there, considering what Aemon just did to him at Rook's Rest. Again, they definitely, the pitting of the brothers against each other, definitely a big departure from the book. But definitely not necessarily one of the worst changes, I guess, at least. Out of all of the changes, out of all of the really bad changes, this one wasn't super bad. I don't mind this little rivalry, this little hatred between Aegon and Aemond. But yeah, definitely makes sense that Aegon would be haunting his dreams here in Harrenhal, and that he'd be having these visions of a fiery-faced Aegon coming from him. And again, just like we talked about with Ormond, we see this with Aemond as well, where Aemond kind of portrays himself as this super strong, tough, grounded, kind of capable knight. I'm the one that studies the histories. I'm the one that practices with the sword every day. I'm the one that rides the largest dragon in the world. I'm the one that should be king. This is how Aemon sees himself. But here, he's getting a little taste of, again, what Daemon got. He's getting a little taste of what all of these characters get when they finally get that real look at themselves, when they finally figure out what they're really made of. And Aemon is still filled with fear. He's still filled with fear and envy and anger. And a lot of it is still tied to his childhood, as we see in this episode as well. He's still talking about how his brother bullied him as a kid, how all of them bullied him as a kid, how he didn't grow up with a dragon. He grew up the outsider, the weird one. And Aemon's held on to that chip, I think, on his shoulder, his whole life. And I think that's part of what has made him so driven and so determined to kind of claim a dragon like Vhagar, to become a really good swordsman. But it's also the same thing that's keeping him from dealing with, that trauma, that repressed trauma that he has deep down for all of these things that he just doesn't want to face, including the fucking creepy, weird mommy issues that he apparently fucking has. So yeah, Aemon is he's a properly messed up character here on the show. Like they really painted a kind of dark psychological character here that is like super fucking fucked, super fucked up. But if nothing else, I do think Ewan McGregor plays him pretty well. Yeah, she doesn't even flinch. I mean, it's straight up Batman. Straight up fucking Batman. Alice fucking Batman Rivers. She's not the witch queen of Harrenhal. She's the fucking Bat queen of Harrenhal now. Fuck. Absolutely. Which one would you say has been the worst changing from the books in the whole Rhaenyra storyline? Oof. Honestly, it's the whole Rhaenyra Alicent storyline right from the very beginning is fundamentally flawed. It seems like the show was determined to paint a big portion of this story around the fact that Alicent and Rhaenyra were once friends, which is a complete departure from the books. That is, one thing that is different, very different from the book. For those of you that haven't read the book, this really isn't much of a spoiler now because we're well past this. But in the book, Rhaenyra and Alicent are never friends. They were never best friends. They never even liked each other. They were rivals right from the very beginning. And in the book, Alicent is, a little bit older than Rhaenyra. They're not the same age either. And it's just, it's a horrible relationship right from the very beginning. Alicent is like that kind of, or at least Rhaenyra sees Alicent as that kind of evil, that wicked, evil stepmother type. That came and married her father after her mother died. So there was never a friendship there. There was never any bond there. They were always rivals right from the very beginning. And the thing about the Dance of the Dragons is the point of the Dance of the Dragons anyway, at least from George's perspective, the reason why George wrote Fire and Blood, the reason why he is, dived deeper into these Targaryen kind of, lines, is to kind of flesh out the lineage a little bit more. But the Dance of the Dragons in particular is supposed to be about the ending of House Targaryen and the extinction of the dragons. That is what this story is ultimately meant to signify, what it's ultimately centered around. But on the show has kind of centered it around, to a certain degree, centered it around the friendship of Alicent and Rhaenyra, which again, it kind of fundamentally changes some aspects of the story. And it's that and the Nettles thing. The Nettles change was just ridiculous. I think Nettles is one of the best characters in the book. And I think Nettles is a huge fan favorite for a reason. It's not just like, this random character. It's a character that serves a very specific function within the story, within the narrative. Not only is Nettles that kind of POV from the kind of view of the small folk, where you have all of these dragon lords and all of these dragon riders, fighting for this Iron Throne, and dropped right in the middle of all this chaos, you have Nettles, this little girl that manages to claim a wild dragon nonetheless by gaining its trust by feeding it sheep. It's such an endearing storyline right from the very beginning. And then you see like where Nettles goes, how her storyline kind of intertwines with Damon's and Rhaenyra's, and where that kind of goes, what happens from it. Her, right from the very beginning, the Battle of the Gullet was changed, but from them not doing Nettles on the show, it fundamentally changed so many things on the show, starting with the Gullet. The Battle of the Gullet was completely different on the show than it was in the book. The Gullet is just way better in the book. I think it is anyway. The show did not do justice to the Battle of the Gullet. It's because it's just so much different. It's fundamentally different in the book than it was on the show, because the show has fundamentally changed some of these characters. Not the least of which is Aegon the Younger and Viserys II. In the book, they're much older, and Aegon the Younger even has a dragon that's close to riding age at this point, with Stormcloud. But on the show, they made both of those kids babies, which completely kind of fundamentally changed the Battle of the Gullet and how it started and what takes place during it. So some of these changes might seem small at the beginning, but it's like George talks about. It's the butterfly effect. You change something very small in the beginning, it ends up changing so much more of the narrative as you get further and further down. And I do think that's what we're seeing to a certain degree with House of the Dragon, with some of these characters that they have kind of fundamentally changed. So those are some of the changes that kind of just stick out for me right off the top of my head. But there's been a lot. But those are the ones that kind of just always spring to mind, I guess. But yeah, we shall see. We shall see where the rest of it is going to go. Yeah, the title being Unbowed and Unbent, but not Unbroken. And I think a part of that is referring to a few of our characters. I think Aegon in this episode, he kind of becomes unbowed, unbent, but he's not unbroken. He is still broken. And I think Aemond is of a similar trajectory, where he's unbowed, unbent, but he's not unbroken as well. Aemond is very broken. So I can see the parallel with some of the characters and the title, especially the not unbroken part. Well, we'll see. Do we know the Northman crossed? Roddy said he would take care of Cole, didn't he? We did. We do see. We don't actually get to see it on screen, but we do get it confirmed that the Northmen and the Rivermen do successfully cross. Here, this is actually the scene right here. Again, up until this point, Cole and his men, they were actually pretty effective at stopping the Rivermen and the Winter Wolves from crossing. Like they're burning all the bridges. They got out in front of them, and they were actually really successful with these guerrilla warfare tactics. But that was only ever going to last so long. Eventually, the Winter Wolves and the Rivermen were going to get the upper hand, because this is their land at the end of the day. Nobody knows these lands better than the Rivermen. So of course, eventually they were going to gain the upper hand, which they did. In this scene here, we see Cole coming to the last crossing. If Cole could have got to this crossing and destroyed it, they would have had virtually no chance of crossing without, taking so much time to build rafts or, go completely around. It would have taken so much time away from them. So this was the last chance they had to stop them. But fortunately, the Northmen and the Rivermen get to the crossing first. And that's, I think, the part where Cole really realizes, like, okay, or at least starts to really realize, like, shit, okay, this is over. We're fucked. We're completely fucked now. But yeah, the Northmen did successfully make it.
The Rivermen have crossed and burned the bridge behind them. We can no longer delay their march. So we failed.
That's right. That's right. Big old failure. Big old bupkis for all your efforts. And again, I feel like any sane, sound-minded commander in this moment would realize, okay, now it's time to back up. Now it's time to regroup. It's time to go meet up with Ormond at Old Town, combine what little fucking forces we have left, and see what kind of regroup we can do, what kind of maneuver there is. Any sound-minded commander would have seen this and realized, okay, we've gone as far as we possibly could. But Crispy Crispin Cole is far from sound-minded. He has, again, Rook's Rest completely broke this man. He has not been the same since that battle. He never will be the same. Seeing this devastation that these dragons can wreak on the ground and realizing how insignificant he is in the face of that, I think it really put into perspective just how small Cole really views himself and how he views just foot soldiers in general. So he's just been completely checked out since Rook's Rest. It broke him. I feel like he's just been a dead man walking ever since. He's really just waiting to die, going through the motions and waiting to die. And here we see that. Even though he's in the face of certain defeat, he still wants to cross. He still wants to keep going. And he still wants to, and it's one thing for you to be on a suicide mission for yourself. But you have a bunch of men that you are also responsible for. Like, you're responsible for bringing your fucking men home. They look to you. You're their fucking commander. They are looking to you to get them home to their families, to their wives, to their children, to their friends. Like, so it's not just your life that you're putting on the line here. And that's something that Crispin doesn't give two fucks about at all. He doesn't care about putting all of his men's life on the line. For him, he sees this as a glorious exit, an exit from a miserable existence that he's been living ever since Rook's Rest. But yeah, it's kind of fucked up because he's taking his men down with him. He is taking his men with him. But yeah, Butcher's Ball is coming. That's right. Again, this episode, it was perfect setup for the Butcher's Ball to happen probably pretty early on, I would say, in episode 6, just based on where the episode ended. I have to imagine it's not going to take very long. Like, I don't see that battle happening at like the end of the episode. It's probably going to be closer towards the beginning or middle, I would imagine. But yeah, the Butcher's Ball is freaking coming. Where's Dreamfire and why don't we get any solid relationship with Helena? That was another change that we were talking a little bit about that actually in the pregame show before the watch party. And that was one of the changes that came up in the chat in terms of, in the book, Helena and her dragon Dreamfire are inseparable. Like, she's always riding her dragon in the book. Like, she's a really adept dragon rider. But on the show, they've made Helena just the relationship with her dragon non-existent, pretty much. Helena doesn't ride. We hear Rhaenyra say that Helena has never taken to riding. So that is another pretty big departure. And that's like a huge part of who Helena's character is in the book. Like, she and Dreamfire are inseparable. So yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointing change. Again, it's like, they give her this, dragon dream kind of ability, which many Targaryens have had in the past. These, this gift of prophetic visions, dragon dreams, as we call them. But in order to get the dragon dreams, she had to lose her actual fucking dragon pretty much to the point where she never rides it. So yeah, bit of a, I don't know if that's an upgrade or a downgrade, to be honest. I guess that's up to you guys. You made a good point about the episode starting out strong, but getting a bit weaker as it goes on. Is it just me, or does it feel like the season's a bit weirdly paced? We only have 3 episodes left. Again, I feel like every episode of House of the Dragon is weirdly paced, and I think a big part of that is due to the kind of only 8-episode format. When you look at the Dance of the Dragons, yes, it's not like this massive, massive long story that would need, 10 fucking seasons to tell. But I do feel like if we would have gotten 4 seasons of 10 episodes each, with every episode being as long as these ones are, that I think could have helped out immensely, flesh out some of these things that they completely skip over. There's a lot of stuff that they skipped over on the show. A lot of battles, a lot of plot lines, a lot of character arcs. Like, so much stuff is not on the show that's in the book. So yeah, I think their initial assessment of only 4 seasons, I think that was a little low. I think they underestimated just how much was in the Dance of the Dragons. in terms of like the actual war itself. You know, this war takes place over the span of like a 2-year period. And there are so many battles that take place. Like, we aren't even getting any of the Greyjoy stuff or the Red Kraken or any of that on the show, which is a huge fucking disappointment. So yeah, I mean, I think in hindsight, 4 seasons was not enough to tell this story properly. Not with a proper pacing, with proper character development, with proper narrative building, with proper payoffs. I just don't think 4 seasons of 8 episodes each was enough in the long run. But we'll see. I guess we'll be able. I guess we'll be able to judge that a little bit more definitively, like once we actually see the whole show. So I guess I shouldn't judge it too prematurely, because they do still have the rest of this season and a whole other season to get through before the story ends. So I guess, you know, I will withhold, you know, any full judgment until we see the series in its entirety. But I do think that, you know, they could have easily done this show in maybe 5 seasons instead of 4 and fleshed some things out a little bit better. But who knows? Maybe not. Maybe not. I like Sir Kristen Cole's speech at the end. Just doesn't want to give up. I think it's kind of the opposite. I think it's that he does want to give up, and I think that's been his goal the whole time. And I think kind of Gwaine kind of calls him out on that. Even like, this has been your plan the whole time, hasn't it? You've wanted to die. And I think he has. I think Cole has wanted to die ever since Rook's Rest. But I think the kind of person that Cole is, he didn't want to just kill himself and give up in that manner. He wants to go out like a warrior. He wants to go out like a fighter. So again, I feel like he's doing maybe a little bit of both. On one hand, he doesn't want to give up because he wants to go out fighting. But on the other hand, he wants to die. He wants to die in combat because he wants this to be over. He just looks like a tortured individual right now that has just completely lost all hope. Every little bit of glimmer in his eyes is just all but completely gone. He just looks like a completely broken man that is just going through the motions at this point and waiting to die. So I think there's a little bit of both of there. A little bit of both, where part of him, doesn't want to give up because he wants to die in battle, but ultimately he wants to die in battle and he wants this to be over. And again, I just think it all goes back to Rook's Rest. Rook's Rest broke this man, completely fucking broke this man. And he'll never recover. In the recap of episode 5, it shows the killer of the gold coats. He's wearing a green dragon. He's sneaking in. Ooh, yeah, look at 121 of tonight's episode recap before the new episode. Oh, all right, I will check that out. All right, awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen the inside the episode yet. The little inside the episode snippet that they do. I haven't seen that, and I have not seen the episode 6 trailer yet. I usually take a look at those at the end. Well, we shall. I can pull up the inside the episode thing, and we can take a look at that at least. Let me see. I think I have it here. Yes, I do. All right. I got it right here. All right. Let's see. Let's take a look at the inside the episode, shall we? For episode. Oops. All right. Here we go. Let's stop sharing this. Let's share this. And let's see what we can see from inside the episode. Right, here we go. Here we go.
Will you let yourself be rattled by vapid taunts, by the painting of stripes on tavern walls?
They are more than taunts. They are an insult to my sons. A challenge to my very legitimacy.
You are the Queen of Dragons. Your strength is your legitimacy.
Throughout this season,
Okay, 112, you say, Skip. Let me go to 112. Oh, the recap before tonight's episode. All right, I'll go back to that. All right, gotcha. The recap before tonight's. All right, gotcha. My bad. All right, here we go. What was it, 120? 121. All right. 121 of the recap.
they protest you out there in the city.
Send word to Sir Luther. Have his gold cloaks look for any seditious markings and find those responsible.
Rhaenyra did us a favor.
Now, what am I looking for exactly? What am I looking for exactly? 122. Shows the killer of the gold cloaks. He's wearing a green dragon. He's sneaking in. 122. There's 118.
Grant Harrenhal itself, and let Joffrey be brought back from the Vale.
I don't know. That's my 122 right there. Oh, that guy. Okay, that guy. Yes, yeah, he was the guy that was at the Scorpion. Yes, he was the guy that was at the Scorpion. That's right. Yes, Skip. You're right, bro. Yes, I didn't even recognize that the first time. Yeah, when Alicent goes to the Hightower soldiers that are manning the Scorpions, and she tells them to not fire at any dragons that are going to be coming down. That was one of the fucking dudes. Yes, you're right. You are absolutely right, Skip. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't see that. I didn't notice that on my first watch. No, but that's him. That's fucking him. Let's see if we hold on. Let me get him on screen here. That was him. That was him. That was definitely him. That was the same. No, that was that. Yeah, I think that was him. I'm pretty sure that was that same guy that was sitting at that table when the guy walks up to him and gives him that message. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that same guy. Yeah, that was him. I'm almost positive that's him. Which would make sense. I mean, if the Hightowers are looking for men that are still loyal to them within the city. I mean, these are Hightower guards that were posted in King's Landing for many, many, many years. They know the city inside and out. So they would probably be very suited to a job like this to be able to strike from the shadows and to be able to get away with it because they know the city so well. So no, I think it fits. I think it makes perfect sense. And I think it looks exactly like the guy. So no, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think you cracked it, Skip. I think you cracked it, my friend.
Brought back from the Vale.
Help me. We seek the Prince Aemon.
Send word to Sir Luther. Have his gold cloaks look for any sedition.
Yeah, that was him. Let's go back here. That fucking dude. I forgot all about that dude.
The City Watch trusts you. You will entreat them to be patient.
There he is. That's him. That's him. Good catch. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't catch that. That is definitely him. Same hair, same face, same everything. That's definitely the fucking dude. Here we got it. Crack the code, guys. Skip cracked the code for us. We have solved the mystery of who is committing the murders of the City Watch. Awesome stuff. Yeah, that's him. That is definitely him. Creepy fucking dude, too. Almost look, and he's got two different color eyes. See? He's got a blue eye and a fucking brown eye. Look at this dude. This dude's crazy. You were drawing during it? Yeah, Skip here is an awesome comic book artist. So no, that's awesome that you caught it, my friend. Yeah, he's got two different eyes. This guy's got it looks like he's got a blue eye and a brown eye. Yeah, that's him. That's definitely fucking him. Oh, props to your fiance. It was her. Hey, props to Skip's fiance. Yeah, hey, 100% right. That's him. Spot on. Spot on. Yeah, what's he up to? That's nuts. I guess how many men are left with him? You know, we see Alicent kind of come to the walls, tells them to stand down, and you could tell this dude. If you go back and watch that scene, this dude was not down for it. He did not want his commander to agree to what Alicent was saying. He looked at his commander and said, "Commander," and the commander kind of just folded. But if you go back and look at that scene, it makes even more sense. This was the dude that wasn't really down with it. Like, he wasn't really on board as much as the other guy. And that makes sense. That's why, because deep down he is an Aegon loyalist. Like, he fully believes in Aegon. This might actually be one of the few soldiers that are like legit loyal to Aegon. So no, I think it fits. I think it makes perfect sense. It definitely looks like the same guy. And yeah, when you go back to this scene here, when Alicent comes to them to tell them to, you know, stand down, you can tell he's not feeling it. This dude's not feeling that fucking order. And now we know why. Now we know why. Man. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, Skip. Good stuff. Yeah, I don't know the timestamp. We'll have to find the timestamp of when it shows him in the actual episode, because it's very quick. But there's one scene where he's sitting at the table and he's getting news. Let's see if we can find it. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, I think this is it. There it is. There he is. There he is. Look at blue eye, brown eye. Same fucking dude. Yep, that's him. That is definitely him. Congrats. Props to Skip's fiance. Fucking got it. That is definitely him. Good eye. Good eye. I did not catch that on my first go around. Good eye. Very, very good eye. Awesome. And the timestamp is 25:20. 25 minutes and 20 seconds in is when this scene pops up. Good stuff. Wow. Good fucking stuff. Good eye. Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's definitely him. I guess we're going to see what is next. What is the next step? I mean, he went out and took out the whole command of the City Watch. I mean, Luthor Largent is no more. Feast for crows. Feast for traitors, I guess you could say. So I guess what's going to happen next? What are they going to do next? What is going to be their next move to continue to destabilize the city, to continue to try and get the population to turn against Rhaenyra, show them that she's not an effective ruler, that she can't do this job? And that is Ormond's goal. He is ultimately trying to paint Rhaenyra as an ineffective ruler. And so far, he's not doing a bad job. He is not doing a bad job. But yeah, we have our killer, folks. We have our killer. We have our suspects. And now it's a matter of what are they going to do next? Yeah, 100% Skip. That will definitely be in my video, and I will give proper credit to your fiance in the video when I talk about it as well, because that was a good catch. That was a good catch. That'll be in my breakdown for sure. Good stuff. Really good stuff. That's what's always fun about, you know, watching the show and then discussing it with everybody else. There's always someone that sees something that maybe you didn't see, something a little differently from you. You've got a different perspective on something. You know, I love watching the show, but discussing the show afterwards is probably just as fun, if not more fun, than actually watching it. So yeah, love these live discussions. Always a fucking blast. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty decent episode. You know, they're progressing the plot pretty nice in some areas. We got some decent character development with a few characters. Again, we got some good stuff with Aemond and Alice Rivers at Harrenhal. But again, I think for me, the standout performance of the episode was Aegon. Tom Glencarny as Aegon, and Matthew Needham as Larrys. Those two were the standouts in this episode. Like, again, that fucking one scene of Larry's just giving fucking Aegon the business. Love it. Absolutely love it. It was a great performance from Larry's. It was a great performance from Aegon. Him just sitting there and having to hear all of this shit, again, probably for the first time in his life. It just felt like this was something that Aegon really needed to hear. And he did. He did. Aegon needed to hear this shit.
Time we've been together. From the moment you were injured, in fact. flying drunk into a battle to which you were not invited. You've done nothing
Into a battle you were not invited.
but whinge and self-flagellate with a tenacity I find astonishing. You, who had every advantage in life. You, who had every chance to shine.
Ah, man, that must hurt. Must hurt to hear that, if you're Aegon, because deep down it's so fucking true. Because he did, Aegon did kind of see himself as this big victim, this victim of circumstance, this victim where his brother Aemond is, the best at everything. But it's a skewed perspective because, we always, want to see ourselves as, the main hero of our own story. No one wants to see themselves as a villain. Aegon's never going to look in the mirror and see a bad guy. He's human. He's always going to want to see, or at least come up with a justification for what some of the things he's done. But I think this scene, he really gets that mirror held up to him for the first time, maybe in his life, and he's realizing, holy shit, this is true. Every word of what Larry's is saying is true. I had every fucking chance to shine. Every chance to be one of the greatest Targaryen kings that ever lived, with one of the most, memorable dragons that ever lived. Sunfire is famously known in the book for being the most beautiful of all of the Targaryen dragons, is how it's referred to. So yeah, Aegon had every chance, but we did. We got some really good monologues in this episode, really good, and I feel like it's setting up some really good things. It's not like it's just a monologue just to have a monologue. It was really, it led into some really good character development and some really good setup for the next episode and for these character storylines going forward. So yeah, overall, I thought this was a pretty decent episode. I enjoyed it for the most part. There were some things that definitely didn't work for it. Again, the whole Alice Rivers Batman thing was kind of funny. But then when you see her at the end of the episode in that exact same situation again, and she's just completely powerless all of a sudden, it's the consistency isn't always there sometimes. And that's why I do feel a lot of these episodes, for the first 30 minutes or so, the first half of the episode is usually always the strongest half. These episodes always start off really, really good till you get around halfway point, and then that's when sometimes you'll see a bit of a dip in some of the storytelling and some of the consistencies. But overall, I did enjoy the episode. I think they're setting up a absolutely massive butcher's ball for episode 6. So for those of you that did want a little bit more action, for those of you that definitely want some more battles, rest assured, guys, we are going to get some awesome fucking fighting next week, I get the feeling, because the Butcher's Ball is coming. The Winter Wolves, the Rivermen, Cole and his remaining forces, we are going to see a clash of epic proportions, hopefully. And we shall see. We shall see how it all plays out. But overall, when it comes to scores, and that's one thing we always like to do here on the channel before we close out our streams, and that's one thing I would like to ask each and every one of you as well. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being just dog shit horrible and 10 being perfect, what score would you guys give episode 5 of House of the Dragon season 3, Unbowed and Unbent? What score do you guys give this episode 1 through 10? For me, man, I got to actually really think about this, because there's some things that I kind of want to add like a half a point to, and then there's some things that I want to deduct, a half a point from for some of the things. But overall, on a scale from 1 to 10, I would give this episode I'm kind of teetering between like 7 and 7.5, but I feel like 7 is just speaking to me a little bit more, I guess. 7 out of 10, solid 7 out of 10. Like I did enjoy this episode. Very rarely do I ever give out 10s, but yeah, 7. I think a solid 7. Who knows? Maybe on a rewatch, maybe that'll go up to a 7.5 on our next breakdown after a rewatch or two. But just now, fresh off of it, solid 7 out of 10. definitely enjoyed it. Definitely enjoyed it. Enjoyed it a lot more than last week's episode. Again, we got some good character development. We got some good kind of character-driven narrative for a change. A little bit of action, but also some really good setup for the Butcher's Ball in episode 6. But again, Tom Glenn-Kearney, he's my MVP of this episode. He was phenomenal. He was definitely stood out to me in terms of just pure acting performance. And I'm looking forward to seeing where his storyline goes. Where are we going to see Aegon go next? And will he ever catch up with Aemond again? I guess is the question. But yeah, 7 for me. What about you guys? Where are you giving this episode? We got a 7 from Katrina Marie. Awesome. Yep, same. I mean, again, I think 7 is solid for me so far. Again, that might go up or it might even go down after I rewatch it a few times. But right now, initially, fresh off watching it, 7 for me as well. Rockers gives it an 8. Awesome. 8+. Love that. Absolutely love that. We got a 6.5 from Crazy Description. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Not a bad score. Not a bad score at all. Oh, we got an 8 from Tab. Awesome. Loved this episode. Awesome. I'm glad. Again, this was definitely one of their stronger episodes, I felt. Definitely one of the ones I enjoyed more. For sure. For sure. And Colin gives it in 6.5 as well. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so we got some interesting scores, some varying scores from 7, 8, 6, 5, 8, 6, 5. But it seems like for the most part, it was a pretty decent episode. We haven't seen any too low scores yet, but I guess we'll see what happens in the comment sections afterwards. But yeah, overall, looking forward to seeing where these final 3 episodes are going to go. I have high hopes and high expectations for the Butcher's Ball, and I feel that they really, really, really need to deliver on the Butcher's Ball next week. All of this setup for it to not have a good payoff is going to be disastrous. So, next episode's a big one. This is a big one coming up. Probably the biggest of the season so far in terms of scale and what it's going to mean going forward for, the rest of the season and for the rest of the series. A lot riding on these last 3 episodes, I would say. But yeah, we shall see what exactly is going to happen during the Butcher's Ball, who's going to live, who's going to die, who's going to make it to Tumbleton, and what is going to happen at King's Landing while that is happening as well. Will Daemon be able to root out these traitors, or will more city watchmen fall to the Greens and Ormond's plot? And of course, what is next for Aegon, our MVP, or my MVP for this episode, Aegon himself? What is next for him? Now that Tyland has found Aegon and Larry's, their situation has just gotten a lot freaking stickier. So I am very much looking forward to seeing where that goes next week. And again, part of me wouldn't even be surprised if Larry's fucking kills Tyland at some point just to get his ass out of the fucking way. We shall see. I could totally see Larry's doing something like that because I think Tyland popping up is the worst thing that could have happened for Larry's plan. But we shall see. We shall see. And an 8 from Vanessa M as well. Awesome, solid scores. Solid scores, ladies and gents. But that is going to do it for us tonight on our episode 5 after show discussion. And again, big thank you for everyone who came out and hung out, not just for the after show, but for the pregame show as well. We had a lot of people in here for the pregame show. That was super freaking cool. I know there's tons of A Song of Ice and Fire channels all going live at the same time right after the episode ends. A lot of channels that I like to watch myself as well. So I appreciate anybody who takes the time out to come and hang out with us for a little bit. You guys are fucking rock stars, each and every one of you. And yes, we will be doing, I'll have my breakdown up on the channel tomorrow, my regular video breakdown. And then either tomorrow night or Tuesday night, we will be doing an episode 6 trailer breakdown live, where we will dive headfirst into the episode 6 trailer and we will see what we can see about the Butcher's Ball. But until then, folks, big thank you to each and every one of you for hanging out. Keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers.
Gods.
Because kings. Dragons did.
The threat of war looms.